I get shit done, I have fun, it's my time and I'm the one. I'm breaking through.
Brian Proctor's journey growing up with Bob Proctor. Yeah, it's his dad. It's going to be an interesting journey. I've had an opportunity to have a conversation pre-show with Brian, and if you're not amazed, I'll be surprised. Anyway, it's Brian Proctor's journey growing up with Bob Proctor. I'm your host, Coach Phil, and thank you for being here at the Business Renovator. If you're watching us live, appreciate it. If you've got questions, feedback you want to share with us, let us know. We'll do our best to address those while we're live. And if not getting them live, we'll do our best to catch up with you afterwards. Now, if you're watching it on the replay, hashtag replay, and let us know where you're watching from. And the same thing, if you've got questions, insights, want to get hold of either one of us, we can make that happen as well. In order for this to be, before I do that, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel to help other people see and hear the nuggets that come from the Business Renovator and mainly from our guests like Brian. And so remember to share it out and tell other people. And let's get to my sponsor so we can keep these shows coming. Here it comes right now. It's a shameless plug, but if you're a business owner, it could be hugely valuable for you. So how you get access to that is you go to my website, coachphil.ca, and on the top right-hand corner, when you're looking at it, you'll see a button, a link, and just click on that business growth score, and it'll bring up an assessment for you to complete. And you might just get a pat on the back once you've done it and say, wow, I'm on the right path, nothing else to do except for stay the course. Or you might get some insights as to some areas where you'd like to make some improvements, and in that, you can start on that and work on it. Or you can also have a 30-minute complimentary coaching session with myself. Again, no credit card required for either one, just a conversation and nothing to arm wrestle you into. If we can help you out in 30 minutes, awesome. And if you need more help, and if I'm not the guy, I'm part of a network of other fabulous people around the globe that could be the gal or the guy that could help you with your challenges. Enough of that. Let's bring on my guest. But before I do that, he's an author. He's the son of a wonderful guru who's been in the personal development space for decades. He's no longer with us in the physical plane, but he's here in his legacy. And Brian's here to keep his story going. So Brian Proctor was born in 1961 in Toronto, Ontario. The same year his legendary father, Bob Proctor, was given the Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill book, which began his father's 60-year journey into personal development. One of the things I got from reading the book, Bob was an overnight success just at 72 when he was on a video called The Secret. And he showed up in The Secret in ways that other people were invited to show up, but he knew the secret. It's to give more than what you're paid for. And as a result of that, his career skyrocketed. So for close to 30 years, Brian worked alongside of his father as he taught from some of the world's largest stages. Brian found his niche, depending on where you come from, in marketing and business development. And in the very early years of the internet, Brian originated an idea to build an email list to create value and a platform for his father to share his teachings. This idea set Bob Proctor's company up for success by opening the door early to email list building long before it was an industry standard. As an online marketer, Brian has consistently been in the top affiliate in the large product launches with joint ventures, bringing in millions in commissions and giving many entrepreneurs their first opportunities with a large audience to share their products and services and actually probably live into their dreams. Brian attributes his success to the lessons he has learned over the years from his father in creating lasting relationships. If you could see me, I'm holding up my glass and I'm going to toast that statement because I think it's true too. I'm not Bob's son, but I've been studying his stuff for a number of years. And one of his teachers was a mentor and coach of mine way back when, before The Secret was popular. He was actually teaching The Secret. So today, Brian is self-employed and lives with his wife, Corey, at the south end of Puget Sound in Washington State. He is living his dream of a life well spent near the water, enjoying nature and its finest. I'm going to push buttons and bring Brian on. I ad-libbed there a little bit because you deserve it.
Well, good to see you, Phil. It's great to be here.
I was looking at some things as I was exploring your wonderful book and where you've come from, and I've noticed some of the people that have also you've graced them being on their shows. One of my youngest ever entrepreneurs on this show lives in Bragg Creek. Do you know who I mean? Luke. And Troy.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Isn't that awesome?
It was awesome. And he came on because he qualified. He's an entrepreneur. He's a YouTuber. And when he was on the show, I asked him, what's his big, hairy, audacious goal? Or as in Bob's language, let's just see goal. He wanted an ATV. So he was on the show in the fall, I think October or November. And on the following January, I get a message from him in Facebook. I did it. I said, what'd you do? I got my ATV. And he got it on his own. His dad helped negotiate, but he bought it with his own resources. And he was only 12.
Oh, that's amazing. I got to say, when I did a podcast with Luke and his father and his brother as well. And man, I am so impressed with those young guys. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, more kids and people like that, our world's in good hands.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Interesting young feller.
Yep.
And how I got connected to him, like I don't live far away from him, but how I got introduced to him is a gal that creates these cards for me. Her company's called Cards That Wow. So this is a handmade card, and she said, "Oh, this is a young guy. He lives near you. His name's Luke. Have you heard of him?" I says, "No." She made the introduction. He was on the show. Connecting with other people is how we can help each other get to where we're trying to get to, and help them get to where they want to get to, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So in the green room, I pointed out that there's 13 chapters in your book, and there's some people would find that number superstitious and may want to stay away from it. But if they do, they probably need to read the book even more. But there are 13 chapters. None of them are long, but they're packed with gems, thoughtful gems. One of the things I got out of reading your book was it was going back in time in the moment now and revisiting things I'd heard back in the 70s from that fella, Leland Val Vanderwall. Because your father helped keep that alive. Val's life ended prematurely. He was quite when he passed, but because of the connection, you could probably talk about it more than I can, between him and Val. He had a bit of an influence on your father, I believe.
He sure did. Leland Val Vanderwall was a great friend of my father's. They met, I don't know if it was in the 70s or maybe even the 1960s. And they formed an instant bond and were great friends. He was really, he was a special man. And he's the one that actually introduced my father to the whole stickman concept, which anybody that's watched Bob Proctor, you're probably familiar with that stickman. Well, it was Val that introduced that to him. And I know that changed the course of my father's life. It changed the way he taught his material. And it really, I think it really set him out from the crowd. That's
a really good point. I didn't think about putting up a graphic for it. I don't even have, I'm racing in my mind. Where do I set that? Where I can quickly do it. And I'm not going to interrupt to produce that now because I don't have it handy. Yeah, it's a powerful story. I really liked it as well when I was introduced to the concept way back when. What your father did that I didn't do is he applied it consistently, and he built a life around it where I would go forward, put the brake on, and get stuck, and then go forward, put the brake on, and get stuck. But for those of you who haven't seen the Stickman, You could probably go look for it and on Google, and you can get an image of it. But basically, it's the stickman's head is like a basketball, and the body's like a golf ball, and then there's a whole philosophy behind that. And the way your father taught that principle was powerful, actually. That was one of the things when I think I was telling you when we talked originally that I had sold all my, well, Val didn't have very many bits of content available because he just did it from his heart. And his partners were telling him, you got to have workbooks, you got to have something. So he put together a couple of things, cassettes and a workbook, and that was about it. And those are hard to come by if you've given them up, which I did. That was one of the things in life that was a bit of a regret. But in my quest to catch up and see if I could replace it, that's where I first got introduced to your father. And one of the things I confirmed that I was on the right path was that stickman was in a lot of the courses he taught.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was really the cornerstone of how he taught, because I think it so clearly taught the principles of how the mind works and how we operate and why we do what we do. And, how to change some of our paradigms, how to alter some of our habits. It's a great illustration of how to basically improve our life, really.
Would you mind explaining for those that may not know what the word paradigm means?
Paradigm is really, what's the best way to explain it? Paradigms are really our habits, our way of thinking, our way of looking at things, and our attitude towards things. That's really what paradigms are. And we all have them, good and bad. They're just a kind of a, what's the word? I'm lacking the word for it, but it's a combination of all those things. It's our habits, our way of looking at things, our attitude towards things.
And we have multiple paradigms, right? We have one
really
for the way we drive. Like one of the ways I heard it explained was we could, are you a good driver? Yeah, I'm a good driver. Great. Can you drive at 200 kilometers an hour or 200 miles an hour without killing anybody? Well, I've never done that, right? So maybe I'm a good driver, but I'm not a good driver on a fast track.
Right.
I had an opportunity to experience that safely. I was in a race car simulator that was the only thing that when you crashed, you didn't die. There was no smell of burning rubber or hot engine. So that part, you knew it was not the real thing. But when you were in it, I got dehydrated and I crashed and I burned, and it was exciting, but I wasn't very good at it. But on snow and rain and regular, I'm pretty darn good at it.
Yeah, those are kind of cool. Well, it's funny. My father had a seminar that he ran for years, and it was actually titled The Paradigm Shift. And it was how to shift our paradigms, some of our paradigms that maybe are not serving us. He was really able to show us how to alter our habits, how to alter our way of being so that we could have a better life and do more with our life. And that's really, that was a pretty special thing.
Yeah, it was. I was just looking in my head, thinking about something else in and around that supports that. And it's not coming to the surface as quickly as I hoped it would. People talk about manifesting and the law of attraction, and he talked about that too. But I think he took it to a deeper level of really what's happening. Could you tell the audience what I'm thinking?
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to, one of the first books I ever read when I was a kid that Dad left around was As a Man Thinketh. Earl Nightingale, he had a recording called The Strangest Secret. And that is simply this, whatever we think about, we bring about. What we give energy to, we bring into our life. And, the movie The Secret was all about the law of attraction and really got us, I guess, introduced to the idea of whatever you think about, you bring into your life. And unfortunately, most people wish for a thing, but they think it's not going to happen. And it's not happening because that's the way their thoughts are really going. We have to go from beyond a wish to a knowing that it's going to come into our life. And And then, quite frankly, we need to take action. So many people just wish for a thing. They don't actually step out and do anything to get towards it. And the one thing I learned from my father from a very young age is that all we need to do is we talked about this beforehand, Phil, is just take one little step every day. What one little thing can I do that's going to get me just one step closer to my goal? We don't need to know the whole way, but if we take that one step every day, they'll add up and the next step will show itself. I've often said, if we get focused on a big ideal, a big goal, something that we really want, and if we just do one little step every day, in 1 year, that adds up to 365 little steps. I promise you that'll bring something big into your life.
Yeah, absolutely. The law of vibration was I think the way he described it. When I was thinking of what you're talking about there, I have a fairly large, in the big scheme of things, it's not all that big, but it's big. We're looking for 500 subscribers for a service that we have.
Yeah.
And we don't have any. It's a new opportunity. And so when I set the goal, the target, that I don't know exactly how to get there. I know I have to talk to people. I need to, anybody I'm talking to, let them know what it's all about. And everybody I've talked to, even in the space that it's supporting, nobody said it was a bad idea. Nobody said, oh yeah, that's great. You're right on point. So I set a goal, let's say 500. And the vibratory wave, at first it was like this. But then as time goes on and things aren't happening, then that paradigm or that subconscious evaluation starts to slow the wave down to a more like what's that? What in Florida they have manatees? Manatees. And they're kind of slow, like they're the cats of the sea. They're not very exciting. And that doesn't get you anywhere. So I remember being introduced to it. I don't know if it was Leland that taught me it or somebody, but there's 3 levels of goal setting or targets that what I found works well. If you set a good and a great and a wow, and then each one of them has a reward for that accomplishment, I tend not to flatten out because I don't know if this has ever happened to you, Brian, but when I was on commission-based quota-driven opportunities, if I made the quota or I was close to it with lots of time in the year to go, I didn't consciously take the foot off the pedal, but I did. And when I got closer to the deadline, not a timeline in this case, now panic sets in. Now, how can I get there? So I learned that if I had the good, great, wow, different horizons to move towards, I never flattened out. I always kept the tension and the energy, the vibration would be like this. So I had a light bulb moment.
Right.
I backed up. I still have the 500, but I backed it up to 100. Now that's turning on the creative juices because it's more within my control, I think.
Right. Well, I think that's the key to life, I think, is to have a big goal, something you're really striving for. I think if you were to talk to most people in the street and ask them what their goal is, you might get a blank look or you might get a bit of a lame answer. Most people don't have a great goal that they're going after. But if you do, it will cause you to do things you wouldn't normally do. And it's like what you're saying. If you can break it down to little pieces and just keep chunking at those pieces, boy, you can accomplish so much more in life by going after something big. And usually it's by going after something that you're not even sure how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
But that inspires you. And that's the key to living a great life.
You recall, in your book, there's a section, a chapter that speaks specifically to that. So if you haven't got his book yet, you might want to do it. It's a very short chapter, but it's loaded with powerful data and information, a step-by-step process and how to get there. Your father called it the what type goal?
Oh, he called it a C-type goal. So he had his method of teaching and what he shared was there's 3 types of goals: A-type goals, B-type goals, and C-type goals. And an A-type goal is something that you already know how to do. It's like somebody that wants to buy a new car. Well, they bought a new car 4 years ago. That's not really an inspiring goal. It's something you already know how to do. He said a B-type goal is a little more inspiring. A B-type goal is, it's a stretch, but you know that if you put this piece together with that piece and you did this and that, you'll get there. And he said a C-type goal, that is a big goal that inspires you, that you quite frankly don't have a clue how exactly you're going to get there, but it inspires you. and it causes you to do things differently, that you'll figure it out and get there. And if you can find a C-type goal, something that inspires you, that you don't know how you're going to get there, but it gets you up every morning, he said, that's the secret to living a better life. That is going to cause you to stretch. And he said, that the interesting thing, and this is something I've certainly learned, is that when you set big goals like that, and when you get there, it's usually a little anticlimactic. It's like you've got the reward, but it's what you learned along the way. That's the thing. And I've gone after big things in my life, Phil, and I do know that achieving that was great. That's the reward. But the things I learned along the way have caused me to live differently. That's the real big special sauce, I guess,
Yeah, and it's not just the things you learn. I mean, that's a big part of it, right? But it's also the people that you've met, the places you've been, and the experiences you get, good
Absolutely.
and bad, right?
Yes. Yes.
It tests your mettle.
Yes. Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. Having a big, hairy, audacious goal is important. I think you probably, you would know better than me again, but I'm going to make the assumption that because of the book he was first introduced to early on in his career, when I think he was at the fire department, and Ray
Stanford.
Yeah,
Ray Stanford.
he gave him a book, and he gave him some things to think about. And one of the principles in Hill's research was having a burning desire. And when I think back and reflect on my own life, whenever I've had a burning desire like you're speaking about, I was able to invent a way to make it happen. The thing that I find challenging for me, and I think probably I speak for some of the other people in the world, is how do you get to creating a burning desire? Is there a secret sauce that your father shared with you that I'm not aware of?
Well, he had a seminar many years ago called the Goal Achiever Seminar. And for me, man, I love that seminar. And back in my early 20s, when I was in real estate, boy, that thing got me fired up, and my sales always went through the roof. And it was really simple. He'd say the best thing you can do if you want to find that burning desire, that goal that's going to drive you, and you're having trouble figuring it out, is to take some quiet time, sit in a quiet place, have a pad of paper, and imagine that you have a magic wand and you could have anything. You could have anything in your life. You could be anything. You could do anything. What would that be? And to start writing it down. We're going to have our paradigms, our thoughts saying, oh, there's no way you can do that. Why would you ever want that? What's my brother going to say? What's my wife going to say? Or what's my husband going to say? Don't worry about all of that. Just you had a magic wand. You could have anything. What would it be? And start writing that down. And do that every day. And just take a quiet place and start writing things down. What you'll find is that there's going to be one or two things that just keep coming up, that keep coming to the list. And it's like, man, I don't know how I would ever do that, but it keeps coming up. That's when you're starting to discover what will inspire you. And that's when, Dad would always challenge me, Brian, that's what you got to go for. And I said, well, I'm not quite sure how I get there. And he says, that's what's great about it. He says, if you don't know how you're going to get there, but it inspires you, you'll figure it out. And that will cause you to stretch. It will cause you to learn things you never knew. It will cause you to step out of your comfort zone. And I have always found, and I know that you would probably agree with this, Phil, that when we step out of our comfort zone and do things that is, quite frankly, a little bit scary, boy, oh boy, we learn so much. And that's when you've found that certain something that drives you and takes you to a great place.
I like that so much. I had to get off camera because I have a magic wand.
There you go. I love it.
I don't know if you can hear that or not. I'll try it again.
No, I heard that. Yep.
I use that for presentations.
You know what? There's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, there is. So there's a magic wand. But the magic in the magic wand is to do the work, like you're just talking about what your father was talking about, the goal seminar.
Yeah. Goal
setting seminar. Yeah. And to do it with an open mind. From what I understand, an open mind, it's similar to a parachute. So when you're jumping out of a plane, it opens up, right? And takes you to where you want to get to. So if you have an open mind using the the idea of the parachute, you're going to catch a wind and some ideas and get connections to people and other. It's like a pebble in the pond. The ripple shows up and things happen. It's
Right.
sounds a little maybe woo-woo-ish, but it's really not. It's the way our minds just designed. I did some digging to figure out. I'd heard about a fellow by the name of Festinger, and he came up with cognitive dissonance. So cognitive dissonance happens, for those who don't know, is when we have two opposing ideas in our head at the same time. So by setting this big, hairy, audacious C-type goal, now we've created a problem. And our creative subconscious mind, the way it was explained to me, its job is to maintain sanity. So it's going to bring us back into our comfort zone and give us all the reasons why we shouldn't take a chance. What Bob's teaching is having a burning desire, a brilliant end result that you want to go after, and you put your energy and your thought there. You're going to find ways to suppress the pull back to where you are, have your paradigms, and allow you to break out and grow into somebody you haven't been yet.
Right.
So it's creating that dissonance and solving the problem and having a bigger end result, emotional connection to that versus the staying in your comfort zone. Or in the heating and ventilation, when we have a furnace, we set our furnace at an air conditioning units at a range of 68 to 72. And that in that area there, if it stays in there, nothing happens because everything's cool. But if it goes out above it gets too hot or too cold, the thermostat sends a signal, and the HVAC equipment does this thing, gets the furnace on or the AC on. Right. Well, it's not dissimilar to us. We have a set point, paradigms, as to who we see ourselves as. And by doing the C-type goal and focusing on that, we can adjust our set point. So it's not stuck at 72.
That's that. And that is the deal. But the key is you got to make sure whatever you're going after inspires you enough to step out of that comfort zone, to reset that. And I think it's there for all of us. We just got to figure out what is that for you. And away you go.
Do you have any ideas or tips to help people light the fire and keep it going so they maintain that burning desire, so they don't face some pushback or resistance and back off their dream?
Well, I think the real key is, like having that magic wand. Just what is that for you? I've always found that when you're going after something big that does inspire you to step out of your comfort zone, sometimes it's best to not share that goal with everybody, especially in the early stages, because in the early stages, you're most vulnerable. And sometimes those people closest to us, they mean well, but they kind of shoot us down. Why would you want to do that? Or how in the world would you ever? And they can shut you down. So I've always discovered that it's best to only share your goal with somebody that is going to be your cheerleader, that says, man, I know you can do that, that will help you. And it's usually fewer people than you think. My father was always my biggest cheerleader. He was somebody I could share my goal with because he always encouraged me to step out. Now it's my wife. She is my biggest cheerleader. And I know I'm very lucky that way, because I know there's a lot of people that don't have supportive spouses. Here's another thing I have learned, Phil, that when you are going after something really big, you're changing. You're doing things differently, and people notice that. And some people will encourage you, and other people will look at you like, who are you? Because you're forcing them to change their vision of who you are. And people don't like to be changed. So you've got to be aware of all of that when you're starting to step out for something big. And Dad always had a thing. It's you need to have this calm confidence that you're going to get there. And we talked earlier, you don't want to plan the whole thing out, because if you can plan everything out, two things happen. Number one, it's probably not inspiring enough. And two, I've seen a lot of people that plan themselves to death. They just plan and plan and plan and never step out and take action. I've usually found that imperfect action sometimes is the best kind of action to take, and you'll learn it and figure it out along the way. Yes, we make mistakes. Everybody does. But to learn from that and keep stepping out and keep going after that big dream, that's when things really happen for us.
My brain's just, I'm glad I read the book, because everything you're talking about is getting reactivated. I haven't consumed, I haven't absorbed the whole book, but it's been such a powerful gift for me. It was well worth the investment of a few bucks to get a book and a few hours to noodle through it. It's been really good. There's a quote in there, and I'd never heard it said that way, but it was the same message that I've heard. And it was, if you read a book and don't apply it, it was entertaining. That was it.
Right.
So applied, you said earlier, action. So applied action is the key.
Yeah.
And talking about your father's magical openness and encouragement, coaching, whatever you want to call what he did for you and others. Mm-hmm. I had a guest on my show, and I met him in California, and he's an American out of Texas and sometimes lives in Canada. And he put it in this song, The Man from Toronto, I believe is the name of the song. Yes. And he said, if you can hold it in your head, you can hold it in your hand. Right. It's a great song, and it describes your father to a T. Yeah. There was an example somewhere in my studying of his work. It was in one of the books he's written. It was about a couple who were thinking they would like to have a house, and he was supporting them, encouraging them. They said, no, we can't afford that. We can't do this. I think, and maybe you can explain this better than I'm attempting to do that. But as a result of his encouragement and his prodding, they ended up buying the house, but they were resistant. You want to elaborate on that?
I'll tell you a fun story around that not many people know. So yes, this was a couple, it was quite a while ago. And they were both in the insurance business, and they wanted their own home. They were just renting. They wanted their own home. And so Dad said, well, go out and get your home. And they said, well, we don't have any money. And Dad says, you don't need any money. And they looked at him like he was kind of crazy. And they said, well, yeah, you need money. He said, no, you don't need the money until you make a decision. Once you make a decision, then you'll need the money. Then you got to figure out how you're going to get it. And, they had never made the decision to go for it. Well, he convinced them that, yes, they got to go for this. So they did. Well, they started finding ways to sell and do things that they had never done. And their income went through the roof, and they earned the money that they needed to get into this home because they had a goal that was a burning desire. And they got into this house. I can tell you the address of the house. Oh, wow. It's 8 Bard's Walkway in Toronto. And I'll tell you why I know that address, because they bought that house and moved in there, renovated this place. It was beautiful. And then eventually they sold it and moved somewhere else, and somebody else bought it. Well, I bought that house back in, when would that have been? Probably in the late 1980s, maybe the early 1990s. I think in the late 1980s. And I lived there for a few years. So it was, that's a lesson that's really struck with me, because I actually got to live in that place as well.
Well, there's something I didn't know. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
I knew of the story and how people were looking at the lack. Now they were stuck on the how. And it's not their fault. That's the way most of us are brought up, is to live a safe, cautious life. Don't take too many risks. That's not true for everybody, because some people think differently. Like there's probably 3 to 4% of the population of people just like your father was. Mm-hmm. They maybe grew just like you are. You're a facsimile of your father, right? You're not Bob, you're Brian, but with your personality, your paradigms, and his experience and support, you're living your way because of the influence he had. And when I read your book, you give him credit and kudos throughout the whole book. And it's so authentically written, in my opinion. It's really hits the heartstrings.
Well, Phil, I feel like I was a very lucky guy to have Bob Proctor as a father. And I had a very special relationship with him. We weren't just father and son. I mean, we were like best friends as well. We were business partners also. I got to work with him for close to 30 years. Mm-hmm. And I learned so much from him, and I have a great life because of what I learned from him. And, I often say that I'm living this life because of what my father taught me. He didn't give me anything. I achieved all of this on my own. But what he did give me was the ideas and the way to do things, to step out and to bet on yourself. Most people are not willing to bet on themselves. They're not willing to step out of their comfort zone and chase what their real dream is. And that's a shame. I think we are all able to achieve whatever, he said, if you can think it, you can hold it. And it really is that simple. If you can think of it, there's no reason why you can't have it. You've just got to figure out how and start moving. Take that imperfect action. Just take one step today. Everybody, I think, especially with social media, they want that big thing instantly.
Yeah.
And I think, gosh, Phil, if we focus on what one little thing can I do today? What one little thing can I do tomorrow? And just keep doing that. Eventually, those little things add up, and all of a sudden, we're going to be there. And if we didn't do those little things, we'll never get there. It's just a matter of stepping into it and start doing. And action is the key to everything.
And those little things compound, right? That's the eighth wonder in the world.
They really do. Yeah.
And as we're doing that, people are seeing, like you said, people notice. And some of the people will align with what we're up to. And they want to connect with people like us because they're similar in their philosophies as well. So in Hill's book, they're saying you're working with your head down, butt up, and you're wondering to yourself, where's all this money going to come? I'm putting in all these hours and nothing's happening. All of a sudden, the floodgates open and
That's right.
Not necessarily money showing up. I think he used that in the title. I don't know this for sure because it's an easy thing to track, to have a metric.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I think he's talking in that title, Think and Grow Rich, is a holistic approach to living life. It's everything, not just money, but money we can measure by our bank accounts.
Yeah.
So money's not a bad thing. There's a friend of mine that's sitting in the chat here. Well, not in the chat, but he shared this message. I met this young fella. He was a firefighter like your dad at one point in time, but he gave that up to follow his dream with his wife. His wife is a doctor, and I think it was an internship that landed her in where I live in Calgary. And he gave that up to follow his spouse. They moved out here, and he's got a trade. He's a custom carpenter who does really nice stuff.
Oh, that's great.
But look at what the trek he was on. He's doing all sorts of interesting things, this dude. Nick.
That's wonderful. You know what, Nick, I can see that what you've got here, that Serenity poem by James Allen. I actually have put that in my book. My Father Knew the Secret. There's so much value in that. I've seen so many people use that. That poem will give you, gosh, what's the best way to describe it? The strength to have this calmness of mind and this inner knowing that all things are possible. And when we can get into that calm, confident way of being, boy, we can bring so much into our life because we're willing to step into whatever it is without that frenetic energy, that calm confidence. It does so much for us.
Yeah, I recently heard it explained as getting into that space of ease and flow.
Yes.
And where that shows up for me often is when I'm having a shower, because I'm just focused on replenishing and getting started for the day. And great ideas pop into my head while I'm not distracted by stuff like this or emails, because you don't do that. You just look after yourself and ideas pop up. Sometimes, though, I forget about the ideas. I should have a wet whiteboard so I can write the ideas down, but I haven't done that yet. That's fascinating stuff. Also, something that I picked out of your book was a friend of yours, Peggy, created a what do we call that?
Power Life script.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes.
And you followed that track and did what she said, recorded it in your own voice, and went, ugh, couldn't stand it.
Yes.
But you have, like you said, you have a champion that's helping you, and that's your wife. What I liked about that idea was you found a way to leverage something that you believed would work and got over the hearing your voice. I remember what that's like because I was doing recordings way back on cassette, and then you play it back and, ooh, I don't sound like that, do I? I do sound like that, but not to me, right? And now Now, in modern time, we're using video. I, for the longest time, struggled with seeing myself in the video.
Mhm.
I took a certification program for some other coaching that I do, and we had to submit one of our requirements to submit a video of us. I couldn't stand looking at myself, so I found a way to do it.
Yeah.
I would set the camera up so the camera would capture me, but I couldn't see myself, because when
Right.
I'm in front of the room, I can't see myself. All I see is my hands, my nose, my glasses. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I'm okay. But when I
Yeah.
see myself and the way my lips move, I lean the wrong way, all that stuff, that inner critic starts judging me. It's
Yeah.
crazy. So I love what you did. You want to maybe expand on what I'm talking about so they'll
Sure.
get excited about it?
So Peggy McCall, she's a good friend of mine. I've known Peggy, oh my gosh, for over 40 years, long time. I met her at one of my father's seminars, probably when I was in my early 20s. And Peggy and I have been accountability partners for years. We just hold each other accountable to what we're doing. It's always good to have somebody that you share. This is what I'm going to accomplish this week. This is what I'm going to do. And you have somebody to hold you accountable. Well, Peggy kept sharing with me that she was doing this. She called it a Power Life script. And what she did was she recorded a statement, or she wrote out a statement of her ideal life, where she wanted to be, how she wanted to live. And she wrote it as if it had already happened in the present tense. And she wrote it like she was congratulating herself for achieving all these things. And then she recorded it, and she would listen to it multiple times a day. And every week I'm getting this accountability lesson from Peggy, and she was doing her Power Life script and what she was happening and what she was bringing into her life. And she was accomplishing a lot. And I thought, there's got to be something to this. So I did it. So I took a Word document on my computer, and I wrote out my perfect life, how I wanted to be, how I wanted my marriage to be, my kids, the home I was living in. And I wrote it out as if I was already there, and I was congratulating myself. And then I recorded it, and I started listening to it. And as you said, the sound of my voice, I don't know, it didn't work for me. I know it works for some people, but it didn't work for me. My wife, Corey, she has, God, I just think she's got the most beautiful voice. When we're in the car driving somewhere, she'll read an article to me, and it just feels good just listening to her read. So I thought to myself, God, I'm going to have Corey record this for me. So she did, and she recorded it, and she was complimenting me on what I had accomplished and, cheerleading. It was the most beautiful recording. I listened to that thing every morning. Phil, that was probably one of the first things I listened to each and every day. Well, that was, I don't know, it's going back a few years now. I can tell you that I had some pretty crazy things on that recording. I have achieved everything that was in that recording, everything. What it does is it programs your mind to believe it's possible. And once you get past that point of, God, there's no way I can do this. This could be a reality for me. You'll start to do what's necessary to get there. And that's how it works. And it's probably one of the most valuable tools I've ever used. And it really gets you comfortable with something big and scary. It makes you start to believe that this is possible for me. And you'll start to see opportunities and things around you that you might not have seen before because you're open to it now. And away you go. It works like a charm.
What I like about that concept, it ties in with what I believe as well. And it's like when we, buy a newer car than we had before. The thing we notice after we drive it off the lot or pick it up from where we picked it up is how smart everybody else was in making the same decision, because that same model of cars everywhere.
Everywhere, that's right.
It was hardly ever noticed, right? We have that net-like group of neurons called a reticular activating system that has got heightened awareness. So by doing her Power Life script, she's got us to plant what we want, and our RAS is looking at that stuff and filtering out stuff that doesn't resonate there.
Exactly. Yeah, it gets us aware of things that are already around us, but we just didn't recognize.
We're like a horse with blinders on, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's amazing. There's so much, like this book is fabulous. It's like 300 plus pages I'm trying to, of wonderfulness. That's the way to explain it. That's amazing. So you told me it took you about 4 years from start to finish to get it done.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that are promoting writing a book. I've even been told, Phil, you should write a book. And I know that from a marketing point of view and a preeminence point of view, it's really a good idea because I have business cards, right? But that could get easily chucked.
Right.
There's not a lot of intrinsic value in that. But this, worst case, going to be in somebody's garage sale, and somebody else is going to see it. Worst case, it's never going to be thrown away. Right. And it gives you that perception of being an authority. And
it does. I mean, especially, in the business that you're in or anything else, books are a great tool. It's interesting. Dad always said, everybody's got a book in them. We've all got something that we can share with the world. And I remember having this conversation with my wife, Corey, saying, you know what? I feel like I should write a book and about some of the things I've learned and different things, but I'm not quite sure how I'll say it or what I should say. And she kind of looked at me almost like I was nuts. And she said, Brian, she said, we're thousands of seminars I've been at. I worked with my father for 30 years. She says, what's the question you get asked every time at a seminar? It's always, what's it like being Bob Proctor's son? And it was like, boom, this light hit. And it's, wow, you know what? That's what I can write about. What was it like to be Bob Proctor's son? What was he like off the stage? What did he teach me? Because whatever he taught me was the very best of what he had, because he wanted the best for me. And that's how I started. That's what I started writing. And it was a fun journey. When I started writing the book, Phil, my father was alive. And I shared with him that I was doing. I didn't have the title for the book yet, but he loved what I was writing. We had a lot of fun around it, a lot of conversations around it. I finished it obviously after he passed away, but it was an enjoyable thing to write. And I think what I love most is people like yourself that got a hold of the book. I have no idea how you found it. And then you reached out, and it's been a really wonderful experience because I got to share meaningful things for me that I know can help other people in the world.
Yeah, so your book is like the pebble in the pond and the ripple effect. Like you said, you have no idea how it could connect with you. And as you ask that question, I'm going, yeah, how did that show up? I don't remember. I don't recollect. I don't know. Somewhere, some piece of marketing it was on the internet somewhere. And oh wow, he's written a book about his dad. Check that out. So I did, and then I bought it. And then the other thing that I thought I landed on your website, I believe, somewhere, and there was a promotional piece. I'm looking at your website now. I guess I could bring that up and share it with the world. As soon as I get rid of something that's on the screen, I don't know how to turn off. I can get rid of it. So let me share that right now. There we go. And I'm going to put a banner on there so people can actually find out how to get a hold of you. It's not really difficult. It's right there.
An easy one. Just myname.com. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was in here somewhere. Do you have that's right there, I believe. Oh, you're promoting. There's the book right there.
Yeah.
I probably got it from here.
Oh, okay.
And then I did, oh, look, there's my email address. And then I actually took you up on this. And it still worked. So I have the bonuses. I have the workbook to go with it, which I haven't dove into yet. And there's a couple of other videos. That's when I realized that you were with the Aberleys on their show.
Yes.
When I saw Luke, I never met his brother. And I met Troy. Troy's been on the show, and Luke has. But Luke was first. He broke the ice for the Aberleys.
Yeah, he's a special young man, that one.
Yeah, he is. Like we were talking off camera about when I met him, he was 11 when he turned. I think that's what he was. Maybe it was 12 and I went to 13. But he had a C-type goal, and I talked to him about that. And he was kind of, well, yeah, I want an ATV. And keeping in mind, he's not even a teenager yet. And I got a message in social media, I think it was my Facebook account. And he said, Phil, I did it. And I went, what did you do, Luke? He says, I got my ATV. So he found a way to buy that because he had an emotional connection to making it happen.
Yeah.
And he earned the money. His father didn't pay for any of it. He did offer guidance and help with negotiation and do an evaluation of the equipment, but that's the only role he played. There's a good picture of the two of you, right?
Oh yeah, I love that picture.
Oh, another one too. Anyway.
He was a special man, that's for sure. There's my wife.
With a wonderful voice. There was a picture in the book of Leland Val Vanderwall, but I can't remember if it cycles up on here or not.
It does. I believe it does. I think it does.
Cool.
I think it does. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good to read the book. I really enjoyed it. Not just enjoyed it, but as I mentioned to you before, it percolated up something content that I was aware of, but I forgot about. Like, took me back into the days when I actually got to hang out with Leland.
Yeah.
And through your father, I got to, and your book now. There they are, right there.
Yeah, there he is.
He's the guy with the bow tie. Anyway, it really had an impact on me reading your book. If there was something that you wanted to offer up to the audience now, or if when they watch this later, what would that one thing be?
As far as what to do?
Yeah.
Here's two things. First is, find that something that's going to drive you. Find that goal, something that's going to cause you to step out of your comfort zone. And if I was to say anything, it's what can you do to be the best version of you every single day? If you can live in the present moment, be that best version of you, be the best husband, best wife, best parent, best child, best business person, whatever it is, be that best version of you every single day and just do one thing, one little thing to get you a step closer. Your life will never be the same. I don't think we give energy to that often enough. I think most of us just live day by day, doing whatever we do every day. Well, if you can get focused on something big and take one step every day, those little things will add up. That's probably the biggest thing I would share. The last piece of really valuable advice, Phil, I'll share with you on this. This one touches my heart in a very unique way. When my father was dying, I spent pretty close to the last 6 months of his life up in Toronto with him, helping him and Linda in whatever way that I could. And the last few days, we're in the hospital, and gosh, I remember sitting by the bed, holding his hand for hours, and we would talk and talk and talk. He'd fall asleep, he'd wake back up, and we'd talk again. And he said to me this. He says, "Brian, keep talking to me. Keep talking to me every day." He says, "I'm going to be gone soon, but you keep talking to me, and just do it in a quiet place and listen to that inner voice and let it guide you." And he says, that's what we call intuition. Well, I've always thought about intuition, but I never took it really seriously. Since his passing, I listen to my intuition and I follow it to a T. And it has caused me to do some things that were very uncomfortable. I'm not afraid to say, but because of that lesson that he just kept driving home at the end, I listen to it and I follow it. And I've done some pretty crazy things in the last couple of years. But I can tell you this, if you follow your intuition, it will guide you perfectly. They say when we pray, we're speaking to God. Well, intuition is when God is speaking to us. And we really have to think about that. It's just the divine coming into us. Our paradigms, our way of thinking attacks our intuition. Something will come in and then, well, you can't do that because why would you want to? That's our paradigms, and our thoughts will muck with it. But if we listen to that first thought that comes in and don't let our paradigm, don't let those little little voices on our shoulder dictate what we can or can't do and follow it, your life will be guided perfectly. And I'm a great example of that. I've been living that for the last 2.5 years. And if something comes to me and I feel that, yes, I should do it, I just do it. If I don't know how, it doesn't matter. I do it. If it's uncomfortable, but I know I should do it, I do it. If something comes to me or an opportunity is presented and it doesn't feel right, I don't do it. Even if it sounds great and I get peer pressure, I don't do it. I listen to my intuition, and it has guided me perfectly. So those are probably the two things that I think are a lot of value that I would leave somebody with.
Well, I'm glad I got the short stroke in a positive way, because I didn't think this was going to happen this fast. It's funny how things happen. I got your book, and on the weekend I was going, I should reach out to him and see if we can have a conversation, see if it makes sense to even have you on the show.
Right.
And that was in less than, I don't know, 8 days. And here we are. And you fit me into your crazy schedule because you're heading off to Europe for a few weeks to do some teaching and traveling and some awesome things there, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, everything works out the way it's supposed to work out.
That's
if
right.
we allow it to,
Allow it to. Well, quiet that inner critic and just say, yeah, for now, I'm not listening to you. Thanks. Come back another day. I'm going this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to wrap this up, not because I want to. It's just that it's almost been an hour, and that's the experts say that we should do them shorter. But we couldn't have had this dynamic, interactive conversation in 22 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been great being here with you, Phil. I've really enjoyed myself.
I really appreciate you being here. If you would hang out for a bit as I wrap this up, it would be great, and I'll come back at you.
Okay.
Thanks again. Wow, that was action-packed, lots of ideas. And one thing I didn't put up for him, and I got it ready to do to point you guys into what I've been reading, what we're talking about, is this. Just go find it. There it is right there. I'll put that up there. That's the book we've been, weatherman guy, I'm not. That's the book we're talking about, right? Oh, no, that's the book we're talking about right there. My Father Knew the Secret. Easy read, but we're talking in the green room, or we said on the show. If you read a book and don't do anything, you might have been entertained. But if you take the ideas that Brian's put in each one of the succinct and short, concise chapters, you don't have to do them all. Just do one a week maybe, and see what happens by the ideas that Brian's taken from his father and his experience with growing up with him, and apply it to your own life. That's my plug for the book. It's really good. It's become like one of the recommenders of the book who endorsed it said it's their one of their new favorite books. I didn't write that, but I'm stealing it because it made sense to me. So the other thing too is the U in wonderful actually came, this wonderful way to say wonderful is a Leland Val Vanderwall quote that I've rejuvenated because it totally makes sense. The U represents you and me, and we're unique. So go act and be your most unique, wonderful self. Until next time, I'm Coach Phil, and this has been another episode of the Business Renovator. So we're wrapping it up right now.
I get shit done, I have fun. It's my time and I'm the one. I'm brave.